All right, everybody, welcome. It is that time of year again. It is time for the Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix. We are done with Blackout, and we look towards the long road ahead to Anniversary 5. And, of course, it starts with the Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix 2020. And this is, of course, just the bit of the preview show, just like I did last year. We're going to just do a quick preview on what you can expect for the Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix 2020. First, announcing the 16 competitors in their two blocks who will be competing for a spot in the main event of Anniversary 5. We start off in Block A with Juice Robinson. This will be his third official year. He came back after an injury last year. Had an okay run, but his best finish only so far was fifth in block. Has a total GP record of 4 wins, 8 losses, and 2 draws. But he has been on a wealth of momentum in the last several months here. But we'll see if he can get it done and continue that momentum against some of the top talent in Hawkeye Pro Wrestling. Speaking of returning people as well, we have the second year of Sami Sabay. Of course, he was in his first one last year. Did pretty okay, but 3 wins, 4 losses. Technically a losing record. He got 5th in the block. But, nothing to sneeze at, as he is, of course, the current reigning television champion. So we'll see how well he does. But the fact that we do have the current reigning television champion means that perhaps if he loses in the Grand Prix, perhaps some of the people who beat him in the Grand Prix could have themselves a television championship match in their future. Of course, Sami Sabay looking to potentially be a double champion. And then we move on to the gentlemen who have not been in the Grand Prix. These are all first-time guys. In fact, out of the 16 competitors, only 5 guys, I believe. I believe it's 5 guys out of the 16 are actually returning guys. Everyone else will be first-timers. So starting off the first-timers, Tetsuya Naito. He's been kind of out and about and just around. He's made his yearly appearances since Anniversary 2. Showed up at Anniversary 2, 3, and 4. And since Anniversary 4, he's shown up a lot more frequently. And this time around, he will be a part of the Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix to earn himself a shot at the Hawkeye Pro Heavyweight Championship. So we will get to see Tetsuya Naito wrestle on a slightly more consistent basis. We're going to get to see at least seven solid matches out of him over the next 3 months, so that should be fairly exciting there. He's also coming off of a hot win against Kenny Omega at Blackout, so he has a world of momentum coming off a former Hawkeye Pro Heavyweight Champion, so we'll see what he can do. And another first is Taylor Mulligan. Taylor Mulligan has also been on quite the roll right now. I don't think he's I can't remember if he hasn't lost yet or not, but he did get a big win back at Death Flag against Shinsuke Nakamura, and has racked up a series of wins and is looking to continue his momentum as he joins the Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix, and perhaps could have a very quick rise to the heavyweight championship and win this year and go on to Anniversary 5. And speaking of, we get Shinsuke Nakamura, the man who, of course, lost to Taylor Mulligan at Death Flag, but has attempted to at least redeem himself. He did have so Mulligan did lose to Nakamura. Nakamura did redeem himself after that loss at Death Flag, but couldn't get it done in the Four Corners elimination match to earn a shot at the title. So therefore, he is in the Grand Prix this year. He's been around for just under a year right now. He showed up actually at back in April at Ballad of the Fallen Angels last year. So we're after a solid year of Nakamura, we're gonna see how well he can do as he has dropped his television title, and it seems like he's been eyeing bigger and better things, and perhaps Shinsuke Nakamura can finally get it done and get himself a shot at the heavyweight championship. A little bit different shift here. The next competitor is Beretta, one half of Reseda Vice. Beretta looking to perhaps try a little bit of singles competition of his own. He and Johnny Gargano have been a team. They've been kind of under the radar recently, haven't had a whole lot of matches, but were able to secure themselves a spot in the Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix to essentially prove that they do belong and they do deserve these matches. And he'll have at least a good 7 matches to prove himself here against some top quality talent. And we'll see if Beretta can get it done. And then we have another first-timer, Hiromu Takahashi. He's been around for quite a while right now. He's gotten himself some decent momentum with a win over Kenny Omega back at Dead Storm Rising a couple of months ago. And he has been in the hunt for the heavyweight championship recently. And seems like he's been eyeing singles championships and wants to cement himself as one of the top stars in Hawkeye Pro Wrestling. And what better way for him to do it than to win the Grand Prix and go on to Anniversary 5. And, of course, every block is going to have a wild card. This year's wild card, instead of coming from outside of the company, is going to come from within, at least one of them. And that is Io Shirai, the first female competitor in Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix history. She's going to take on some of the best athletes Hawkeye Pro has to offer. And she was planning on, of course, walking in here with the Women's Championship after showcasing her dominance in the women's division. But, of course, back at Blackout, dropped the title to Kairi Hojo. So she's coming in looking for perhaps a little bit more, see if she does have what it takes to go up against some of Hawkeye Pro's top stars. And those are your 8 competitors in Block A. We move over to Block B, and we, of course, start with the 3 gentlemen who have been in Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix before. And we're going to start off, of course, with Mr. Hawkeye Pro himself, Shane Hollister, the only competitor in all of Hawkeye Pro who's been in all 4 Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix. And Shane Hollister, of course, won last year's Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix and went on to Anniversary 4 and won the heavyweight title against Alex Reynolds. And he'll look to perhaps recapture that magic that he had last year. He's got a pretty decent winning record, the most matches of anyone in Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix history. 12-10, a decent enough record, but he's hoping to go for the first ever two-peat in Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix. And coming up, he is in his second year, Kenny Omega. Decent enough record last year when he was, or maybe it was, I can't remember if it was last year or 2018. Man, I am mistaking things already. But either way, Kenny Omega is going to be in his second year. He was a block finalist. Okay, so that was definitely 2018 because he wasn't 2019. But in 2018, he was a block finalist. Did not get into the finals. And he is a former heavyweight champion, and I'm sure after the loss that he took to Tetsuya Naito, is looking to get back into the hunt for the heavyweight championship. A lot of people not happy for Shane Hollister being here. And then finally we move on to the last of the returning competitors, and that is Katsuyori Shibata. And Katsuyori Shibata, in his third year, surprisingly enough, his time in Hawkeye Pro actually started as an alternate and a replacement competitor in his first Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix back in 2018. He's been relatively successful since, but however, he's been a block finalist and the finalist, the runner-up in the actual Grand Prix final. And we're going to see if perhaps Katsuyori Shibata can get it done this time. And if third time is the charm to finally overcome that glass ceiling that has been put on top of him and actually win the Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix. And then we move on to our first timers, starting with Father Kingston, the leader of the congregation, is going to be competing in singles action. He doesn't wrestle too often, but he's going to get his chance to showcase his abilities against many of the top guys in Hawkeye Pro as well. He hasn't really been in the hunt for any sort of title at all. He's been mentoring, of course, Sami Sabe in his television title reign. But we're going to see if perhaps Father Kingston can get it done in the Grand Prix and earn himself a spot in the main event of Anniversary 5. And the next competitor making his first spot, weird enough because he's been here for at least a couple years now, but he's been a mainly tag team guy and shock the world back at Blackout, and that is Alex Shelley. He was one half of the Time Splitters with Kushida. Kushida, of course, after winning the heavyweight title at Blackout, shocked the world by hitting him with a belt and seemingly aligning with Tama Tonga and the rest of the cleanup crew. And it seems as though perhaps Alex Shelley has made a deal with the devil to earn himself a spot in the Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix. And of course, with Kushida as champion, how apropos it could be if Shelley wins and goes on to challenge Kushida for the heavyweight title at Anniversary. I'm sure that is something that will be on Alex Shelley's mind in the coming months. And next, we have Naruki Doi, one part of Monster Max, of course. One of his co-leaders, Akira Tozawa, a good friend of his, actually won the Four Corners elimination to challenge Kushida at Tokyo Vendetta next month in Tokyo, Japan. Naruki Doi himself will also be going through the Grand Prix as a potential spot to get into the main event of Anniversary 5. So we will see if Naruki Doi can get it done for Japan. And we move on to Johnny Gargano, the other half of Reseda Vice. Much like Beretta has not had a wealth of either tag or singles matches to prove himself in Hawkeye Pro Wrestling, he hopes to change that in the Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix this time around in hopes to showcase his talents as a singles competitor. And we'll see if Johnny Gargano can be successful and move on to Anniversary 5. I'm just kind of looking at the chat here. It is kind of funny with you guys talking, just because knowing, just because I know everything I know. And then finally, the final spot in the Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix, the wild card spot, does come from outside of the company, and it is the Stone Pitbull, Tomohiro Ishii. Ishii will be coming in strictly for the Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix 2020 to compete for a spot in Anniversary 5. We'll see how well the Stone Pitbull can hold up against some of Hawkeye Pro's top stars, and we'll see if he can get it done. There's a lot of there's a lot of history between him and a lot of these other competitors. So we'll see what he can do here in Hawkeye Pro. Now that this isn't so much New Japan, but we'll see what he can do. And so we move on to showcase at least the There's a reason why certain people aren't in it, by the way, because I know that there's going to be some feelings about that. Pete Dunne is not in because he just lost the title, so he's going to be in the title hunt. Kira Tozawa has a shot at the title, so he's not in. Tama Tonga's not in for a storyline reason, you'll see, as well as Alex Reynolds. So there are reasons why certain people that you would imagine shouldn't be in, why they are in. I also wanted to take a bit of a not like a shot in the dark, but I wanted to take a bit of a risk with certain people in here, because I think people, probably don't want like Mulligan or Io or Kingston or all that. But we'll see how that works. Yeah, I mean there's a whole reason for that, so we'll see how that goes. But either way, it is, of course, over the course of 15 nights over the next 3 months, and we do have the schedule set for you here. I'm going to need to pull this up myself so I can actually read what this is actually going to be. We start off with night number 1 is going to be on the next episode of Adrenaline on Wednesday. It comes to you from Hilton Coliseum. It is going to be a Block A match, and the main event of that night, Tetsuya Naito versus Hiromu Takahashi. As you can see there as well, Io Shirai, Juice Robinson, Sami Zayn, Beretta, and Shinsuke Nakamura versus Taylor Mulligan as well. So we will see how that works out. But nonetheless, Naito versus Takahashi, main eventing night 1, Hilton Coliseum in Ames. Then we move on to the second week in April for Adrenaline. That'll be in Farrell Center in Waco, Texas. The main event for that will be Kenny Omega versus Tomohiro Ishii. Also, of course, happening there, Katsuyori Shibata versus Father Kingston, Hollister versus Doi, and Shelley versus Gargano. So it should be an interesting set of matches here for the first night of Block B, taking place in Texas. We go to week 3 in April. It'll be at the Coors Event Center in Boulder, Colorado. And it will be the main event, Io Shirai versus Taylor Mulligan. And also including Naito versus Juice, Nakamura versus Beretta, and Takahashi versus Sabe. I guess also it actually could go either way for this night. It could be Io Mulligan. It could be Takahashi Sammy. I haven't really decided, but as of right now, the slated main event is Io Taylor. But I'm sure it'll probably end up being Takahashi Sammy by the time I actually get to it. So we'll see how that goes over with that. But we move on to week 4, and it'll be the second night for Block B action. And the main event will be Kenny Omega versus Alex Shelley, going from Rabobank Arena in Bakersfield, California. The last Adrenaline and Breakout in California before we do our short tour in Japan. Also featuring Doi versus Ishii, Hollister versus Kingston, and Shibata versus Gargano. So night 4 set to be pretty big as well. And then, of course, we go to Japan, and, of course, 2 nights for Tokyo Vendetta. And night 2 will be headlined by the Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix and many other different Hawkeye Pro matches. And the headliner for that, Tetsuya Naito versus Shinsuke Nakamura. That'll be at Ryogoku Sumo Hall in Tokyo, Japan. Also featuring Io Shirai and Hiromu Takahashi, Juice versus Beretta, and Sami Zayn versus Taylor Mulligan. So, big time matchup there. Naito versus Nakamura headlining the Grand Prix at Ryogoku Sumo Hall. Should be interesting as well. And then, of course, Block B will be taking place on Adrenaline the following Wednesday, and that'll be at Korakuen Hall in Tokyo, Japan. That'll be headlined by Kenny Omega versus Katsuyori Shibata, and that'll also feature Kingston versus Gargano, Doi versus Shelley, and Hollister versus Ishii. Should be an interesting set of matchups there in Korakuen Korakuen Hall. I've always heard Korakuen, but I've also heard Korakuen, but I just say Korakuen Hall. So then we travel back to the States for the Heck Edmondson Pavilion in Seattle, Washington for the next episode of Adrenaline Night 7 featuring Block A matches. The main event, Shinsuke Nakamura versus Hiromu Takahashi. Also featuring Io versus Beretta, Sami Sabe versus Juice, and Naito versus Mulligan. Should be an interesting set of matchups there. Also featuring, of course, a former New Japan veteran and a sort of New Japan, not so much newcomer, but a big young up-and-comer. So it should be an interesting dynamic between Nakamura and Takahashi with the veteran and the young up-and-comer there. Moving on to Block B for Night 8. That'll be at D Event Center in Ogden, Utah. The main event, Katsuyori Shibata versus Alex Shelley. Also featuring Doi versus Gargano, Kingston versus Ishii, and Hollister versus Omega. Definitely a different dynamic to see. I don't know if they ever had Shibata versus Shelley, just because Shelley was always a junior in New Japan, so I don't think they ever really faced each other. Not to mention Shelley was kind of away from any of the stuff Shibata was doing. Shelley was pretty much away from New Japan by the time Shibata showed up. I think Shelley's only been in like a couple of them. But then we move on to, let me see here, Night 9 featuring Block A talent. The main event, Shinsuke Nakamura versus Juice Robinson. Will also feature Io versus Sammy, Naito versus Beretta, and Hiromu versus Taylor Mulligan. Also another interesting dynamic. It's sort of also between an up-and-comer and a long-time veteran. So it should be interesting to see how that main event turns out as well. And then we move on. That is through May. We get to the end of May. And, of course, we have our annual May pay-per-view festival taking place from MGM Grand Arena. The main event of that night, Katsuyori Shibata versus Tomohiro Ishii. That should be disgusting. I can only imagine how that match will go down. It should be very hard-hitting between these two. Also features Hollister versus Gargano, Doi versus Omega, and Shelley versus Kingston. So Block B featured prominently in that one. Like I said, Shibata and Ishii should be interesting to see. We move to Night 11 for Block A. It'll be in the FedEx Forum in Memphis, Tennessee for the next episode of Adrenaline. The main event for that, Shinsuke Nakamura versus Io Shirai. Should be a very interesting dynamic between the both of them, considering the success that each of one of them had in Japan and the fact that they both have been around for quite some time now. And that will also feature Naito versus Sammy, Mulligan versus Beretta, and Hiromu versus Juice. So a lot of interesting matchups there too, because I would like to see how some of these other ones happen. Am I gonna get penalized for intergender wrestling? I don't think so. I guess we'll find out. I guess we'll find out when it happens. But yeah, we move on to Night 12 featuring Block B. That'll be at Bojangles Coliseum in Charlotte, North Carolina for the episode of Adrenaline. And that will feature Kenny Omega versus Johnny Gargano for the main event. Should be a very interesting dynamic between the two. I don't think they've ever really had a chance to face one another. So I'm kind of interested to see how this works. It's a dream match that people didn't know they wanted. That's how I like to sell this potential one. Should also feature Doi versus Kingston, Shelley versus Ishii, and Shibata versus Hollister. The word Bojangles and the word Coliseum don't go together. Why am I still using? It's because I meant to not do that, and I meant to not do that, but I already made everything, so yeah. Just roll with it. It's fine. I know. How many nights are there? There are 15, so we're almost there. We move away. This is, I believe, week 3. This will be June week 3. We move away from the United States, go up to Canada, Budweiser Gardens in London, Ontario, Canada, for that episode of Adrenaline, featuring Tetsuya Naito versus Io Shirai in the main event. Should be once again another dynamic of two people who kind of had a fair amount of success in Japan. Of course, it'll also feature Juice versus Taylor Mulligan, Hiromu versus Beretta, and Shinsuke versus Sammy. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be unhappy to potentially see Shinsuke versus Sammy not the main event of this, as I'm sitting here thinking about this. So we'll see. We'll see how people feel about this. I'm just saying, it's knowing what I know, it's just interesting to see what you guys are talking about. By the way, the main reason why Io Shirai is also so prominently featured is because she's fucking over. She's like I think like top 10 in the US in popularity. Like, it's crazy. She's over the majority of the men that she's fighting. She is more over than the majority of the men she's going to be wrestling in this. So either way, we move to night 14, and it'll be the so that will be, I believe, that'll be the final block A night there. The final block B night will be at Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois, featuring Shane Hollister versus Alex Shelley. And this will be the final block B night, also featuring Omega versus Kingston, Doi versus Shibata, and Ishii versus Gargano. So that will be the final night there to determine who is going into the Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix final. And then, of course, nothing put in stone here for the last bit. Might as well showcase it, and that is the fact that the Block A winner and the Block B winner will be taking each other on. We will be at Wells Fargo Arena in Des Moines once again for the Grand Prix final. Of course, the top two people in Block A face each other. The top two people in Block B face each other in the first two matches of the night. The winner of those matches go on to face each other in the Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix final. The winner will go to earn themselves a Hawkeye Pro Heavyweight Championship match in the main event of Anniversary 5. It'll be one of those 16 competitors will be main eventing Anniversary 5 for the heavyweight title. And then, of course, the bottom 6 people competing in the Dead or Alive Steel Cage Scramble to potentially be fired. So we'll see. We'll see how this happens. I'm excited just because I know what's going to be what, and I think a lot of people will be surprised about a lot of things that happen. So we'll I don't want to give anything away, but there you go. That is the Grand Prix 2020. Let me try to move back over to the main spot here. I didn't want to spend too much time kind of dwelling on it, but yeah, like I said, I wanted to try something a little bit different. I know there's going to be a lot of people saying, hey, there's a lot of missing people. What about this person? What about that person? Understandable. Like I said, Pete Dunne did just lose his title, but I'm thinking he'll be involved in the heavyweight title outside of the Grand Prix. Akira Tozawa has a shot at the heavyweight title at Tokyo Vendetta, so he's involved outside of the Grand Prix. Kushida, of course, as a champion, won't be involved as well. So yeah, it's quite a bit. And like I said, Tama Tonga also will probably be involved outside of the Grand Prix as well. There's a whole list of things. So a lot of people already speculating people being fired. Oh shit. So that'll be something. But yeah, I wanted to. It's a bit of a risk with a lot of the people that are in here, because I know they're going to be people being like, "Why is this person? Why is that person?" I know it's a meme to complain about Shane Hollister, but whatever. I figured more people would have more of an issue with like Beretta, or I know people have an issue with Mulligan and EO, but once again, it's a lot of like risks and trying to do something different. But then again, we'll see how well it works. There you go. That is Hawkeye Pro Grand Prix 2020. Like I said, one of those 16 people are going to win. Should be interesting sets of matchups here. Tried to put some of the strongest potential matchups, especially on the pay-per-views. That was my big worry there. Put up the first or last nights and then pay-per-views. So I'm excited to book it and see what happens here. I will say as well, outside of the Grand Prix and outside of the 2 pay-per-views we usually do, I'll probably do what I did last year and have an Infamous that kind of gets squeezed somewhere in like May between the Tokyo shows and festival in Las Vegas. There'll probably be an Infamous squeezed in there as well. Anything else besides that I can talk about on the stream? I know I tweeted about a title. So yeah, I know a lot of people are talking about it potentially being a men's title. I will say it's not a men's title. But yeah, I'm excited to see what's gonna happen. How well it goes over. Like I said, there's a lot of speculation going on now, and I have a feeling. I just have a feeling that there's gonna be some people who might not like me by the end of this. We'll see, or they might love me. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But yeah. So that is the preview show there. So I'll at least stop the recording here because I don't want this to go on too long. It's already been half an hour of this. So I'll be sure to post this on YouTube here. So thank you, and look forward to the Grand Prix for this year in TEW.